Little quickie on that one. This one, it's kind of a concept, don't write it in pen in your brain, more in pencil, because it may change. But I was looking at a way to with the video that I did explaining which wound product goes well with or what it looks like on a quickie that I did on wound size. I think like sometimes people don't quite understand what I'm talking about, because a lot of people seems to think, you know, wounds just comes in laceration and that's it. But different products will work for different wounds. And so I was looking at something for somebody that doesn't have a medical background, how to assess a wound and have an idea again of what kind of dressing to use. So I was thinking also using something that you would have constantly on yourself, so that you don't require a book or something, or because you could lose it. So I think I came with a system, and so I want your comments on that one and see if it sticks and stuff. So far I've been running it in my head for a while. I talked to a few people that are in the business and stuff, and nobody seems to disagree with my idea. So here it goes, and again, just keep in mind that it could change, but let me know what you think. So basically what I was doing is assessing the wounds using your whole arm. So the first wounds that you would do is with your finger. So if the wound is the size of your finger, this is the product you could use. So you could staple it, glue, hydrocolloid band-aid. And why do I talk about staples and where is suture? Well, again, if you're been on my channel for a while, I don't recommend suturing. But staples, I kind of went into a different video on that. But yeah, so if it is the length of your finger or less, obviously, so maximum of the length of your finger, then those would be like what I would use. Then why the thumb? So because the thumb, you're kind of going downhill. So here's the difference that I saw, and this is why I use a picture, not so much a those would be for what I call puncture wounds, and you see the difference between a laceration. So that yellow stuff here is your fat, and actually this is kind of what it looks like. It looks like little beads. If you ever cut yourself deep enough, that's what you're going to see. You're going to see that like little beads like this. Well, the puncture wounds, as you can see, can go very deep. And so if you're able to put, so it's not so much your finger, but you're able to put your finger in it because it's deep, then it's packing or honey. Because what happens is that bacteria can go very deep on those ones, and they require a different treatment. Because if you just close on the top here, like you would do for laceration, those little bacteria that usually go over here, the ones that usually likes it is without oxygen, and because the oxygen cannot go that deep, they thrive there, and they're anaerobic infection that can develop here. So it's really important to put what we call packing. Is basically it's a dressing that we put there so that any infection or anything that can goes out would go out. And this is why I'm talking, if you don't have the packing, then the honey at least, so that way it could probably kill what there is here, but I wouldn't close that. And this is where the reason with the danger I find with primary closure is that if you miss an injury like this and you close this, then now all this will be filled out with infection at one point, because space likes to be filled by stuff, and a lot of time is fluids or infection, and this is what would happen in the puncture. The next one is a hand. So a hand size, which is basically the equivalent of 1% of your body. So obviously people have different hands, but they usually represent about 1% of your body. And so for those, I would use the Aquacel dressing, aloe vera gel, improvised dressing, or Mepitel, and for different injuries and stuff. And again, this here looks like I took that from the internet, so I'm not quite sure what kind of injury, but an Aquacel could probably fill that and stuff. And again, a hand means that it's not deep, and we'll talk a little bit about the next one. But if you can put your hands as a surface and it's just one side, it fits under your hand and it's superficial, then those ones would probably work good for that. This is a little bit deeper than the other one. You'll see it's still the size of a hand, but I need more of my fist to fill that out. Sorry about that. I need more of my fist to fill that out for that wound, because it's so pronounced. And so we'll talk a little. I didn't talk about those ones again. It's kind of a new concept that I'm seeing, but it's called negative pressure wound therapy, and I'll talk about it, how you can improvise those and stuff. It seems very complex, but it's a very easy dressing to improvise, or improvised dressing. But this would need to be filled, not just apply Aquacel. You would need to fill that space to decrease the size of that wound, so before you can heal it. So basically I would have to bring it from a fist size to a hand size before I can really close it properly, and this is where negative pressure wound therapy would probably work, especially for a disaster like this. And you see, this is what I'm talking about. Is I don't think many people, when they talk about like their first aid kit and stuff, they imagine a wound like this with their little gauze and stuff. And now you can see when I'm talking about hunger dressings or things like that, when you try to close a wound like this, this is where those dressing would fail, because to do a dressing for that with gauze, it would take you about 2 or 3 dressings a day, and each of them would take you, I don't know, 10, 15 gauze for that. So if you have 100 dressing a day, so 20, let's say 30 per day, that means that after 3 days you're out of dressing pretty much. So on day 4 you're running out of dressing, and this would need probably like weeks to close. So you see, this is where where I find gauze doesn't keep up, and this is where those dressing that I'm talking about in new concepts would make a big difference in a wound like this. And this, I mean, could happen, right? So fists for that. This forearm, so basically if your wound is again superficial, again if it needs more than, if you can put your fist in, so this is why you go from your hand to your fist, and if it fits your fist, don't get to the forearm. Doesn't matter if it takes 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 fists, you go to the other dressing we're talking about. But if it's a forearm, so it's greater than a hand but still superficial, so like you see here, it's superficial, it's not deep, then those would be like the 2 dressing that I would go with: aloe vera gel and Mipitel. And we'll talk a little bit more about aloe vera gel. I didn't mention yet, but in future video I'll start talking a little bit more about it. But you see, like a big, this is a road rash that we call, so basically abrasion because either fell down on a bike or something like that. Relatively superficial, very painful, but still need some dressing and stuff, because if it gets infected, or if especially with the surface that it is there, and just even control, like, you know, imagine putting your shirt on that for days on and stuff, it would hurt pretty much, and you can stay with a lot of scar if you don't properly treat those wounds. So if it goes with the size of the forearms, aloe vera gel or Mipitel. So that was the quickie concept. Tell me if you like it. Tell me if there's things that you think doesn't work with that. And again, wouldn't treat all the wounds, but I think 90-95% of the wounds would enter in that category and would kind of help mentally. But again, it's a concept that I'm trying to do to make it more clearer when I talk about wounds, and hopefully it helps. Talk to you soon.